Hey everyone. So today we're going to be diving into some pretty heavy stuff actually. It's been a
Mhm.
tough one for music fans, especially those who I think grew up with the band One Direction.
Yeah.
We're talking about the passing of Liam Payne
Yeah.
and kind of what his loss means for a generation that really connected with them in their younger years.
Mhm.
So for anyone just catching up, Liam Payne passed away at 31. Uh, Tragic accident, a fall from a hotel in Argentina.
Right.
And yeah, the details are still coming out, but
Right.
we're not here to speculate or anything like that.
Right.
We're really trying to focus on the impact this has had, especially on his fan base,
Yeah.
because it's not just about a musician passing away, right?
Right.
For a lot of people, this news has hit differently, like a real shift,
Yeah.
particularly for those who came of age with One Direction as like the soundtrack to their
Uh-huh.
lives.
Totally.
So that's what we're going to unpack today. How are fans processing this?
Mhm.
And what does it reveal about how fandom itself has changed in our social media world?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the idea of a shift because this article that we read in preparation for this, it really highlighted this idea of a watershed moment.
Okay.
And several fans actually used that exact phrase.
Wow.
And it's not just about their individual grief over Liam,
Right.
but it's this entire generation facing this feeling that something has irrevocably changed.
Almost like a line in the sand has been drawn, right?
Yeah.
Like that was then and this is now.
Exactly. Watershed moments are so powerful because they force us to confront the passage of time, both on a personal level and as a generation.
Mm,
Like, think about other events that might fit this description for you. Maybe it was the death of a cultural icon from your youth, or even a global event that totally reshaped the world as you knew it.
right.
These moments, they stick with us. They become these markers of before and after in our lives.
Absolutely. And this article does such a great job of giving us these poignant glimpses into that before for so many fans.
Yeah.
You got Alina and Vanessa Robustelli, twin sisters, just 25 years old. They were saying how One Direction's music still ends up on their Spotify Wrapped every year, even after all this time.
Wow.
And it really highlights how, for so many, this band wasn't just a band. They were the soundtrack to their coming-of-age years.
And that's a powerful thing to be able to soundtrack a period of such intense change and growth for so many people you know. You form a different kind of connection to music during those years.
Oh, absolutely. And then you have Valerie Bouvat de Virginie, also 25, and she said, I don't know if I'm necessarily grieving Liam as the person, but more so what this kind of marks for my generation. That really struck me.
Yeah.
It's like the loss becomes almost symbolic, a marker of time passing and a reckoning, as she put it, with the idea of mortality.
Mm-hmm.
That's some heavy stuff to grapple with, especially at that age.
It is, and it makes you wonder how common it is to feel such a deep connection to artists you've never even met.
Right?
That's where the power of fandom, and particularly how it's evolved online, really comes into play.
You're so right. One thing that really jumped out at me from this article was how many fans mentioned things like group chats or old fan accounts suddenly springing back to life.
Oh, wow.
It's almost like this muscle memory of this fandom just kicked back in.
Yeah.
But now it's a space for collective grief instead of, that shared excitement.
Exactly. And while this outpouring of grief isn't entirely new, think about the reaction to John Lennon's death, for instance. The Beatles fandom was massive, and that feeling of collective loss was palpable.
Huge.
But social media, it changes the game. It makes the experience so much more immediate and visible.
Yeah.
It amplifies it in a way we haven't really seen before.
It's true. And we have to remember, Directioners were some of the first to really define what we now call Stan Twitter, right?
Right.
That very devoted, very organized online fandom culture, they were at the forefront of that whole movement.
Totally.
And that's fascinating in and of itself.
And it's worth considering how that legacy, like the way Directioners shaped online fandom, might be influencing how they're processing this loss today. Because back then it was about building community, sharing this all-consuming passion online, and now they're using those same tools, those same instincts to grieve.
It's like that shared language, those online spaces have taken on this whole new weight of meaning, haven't they?
Exactly. This article quotes a fan named Logan Hill who said, "I know people from all over the world because of them."
Ow.
And it highlights how fandom becomes more than just the music.
Right.
It's a community, a shared identity, sometimes even shaping careers and relationships.
Which makes it even more complicated when you consider some of the circumstances surrounding Liam's death.
You're right.
There's no way to talk about this without addressing the elephant in the room.
Yeah. You're right. It's important to acknowledge the complexity of the situation.
Just days before his passing, there were those allegations from his ex-fiancée, Maya Henry.
Yeah.
You know that TikTok video, the rumors of a cease and desist letter?
Right.
It's not something we need to delve into here,
Right.
but it definitely paints a complicated picture.
It does, and it brings up a really important conversation that's happening more and more these days.
Mm-hmm.
How do you reconcile your fandom, that often deeply personal connection to an artist's work, with their actions and their personal lives?
Right.
Especially now when we're demanding more accountability, having more open discussions about behavior that might have been brushed aside in the past.
It's that thing of holding both things in your mind at once, right?
Right.
Like appreciating the art while also acknowledging the potential harm.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean condoning or excusing anything,
Yeah.
but it definitely makes processing grief and even fandom itself much more complicated.
It's a nuanced situation, and I think for a lot of fans, it raises the question of like how well we can ever really know the people we idolize.
Right.
We form these impressions based on their public personas, their art,
Yeah.
but there's always more beneath the surface.
It's true. And this article quotes a fan, Amy Miller, who said, "The online community has become this safe space to work through all these complicated emotions, both positive and negative." It really highlights the power of those online communities that we keep coming back to.
Yeah.
They aren't just for celebrating the good times, they're also for navigating the difficult stuff together.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to grieve that feel authentic to your own experience, even if it's messy.
Yeah,
Because it is bittersweet, isn't it?
it is.
This fandom brought back together after all this time by loss, by this absence.
It's heartbreaking, but there's also this element of beauty to it.
Yeah.
These people finding solace and connection during a painful time.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think about the stages of grief and how we all move through them so differently.
Yeah.
But when grief is tied to a parasocial relationship, like the one between a fan and a celebrity,
Right.
you've got this added layer of complexity.
Absolutely. This relationship exists in your mind, fueled by their work, their presence in your life through their music or their art.
Yeah.
It's a connection, but it's one-sided, which can make processing their loss that much more difficult.
Because you're grieving someone you've never met, but who might have felt like a constant presence in your life. You know,
Exactly.
a fan in the article, Nyla Graham, put it so well. She said, "You're mourning the person in the same space where you obsessed over them. It's now a strange experience to be using the same forum to be expressing grief.
Wow.
It's like this digital landscape, once filled with so much joy and excitement, is now holding the weight of their grief."
And that in itself speaks to how much social media has changed things. It's become so intertwined with the way we experience and process everything, including grief.
It's true. And it makes you wonder, has social media in a way like changed how we grieve public figures? Does it make it more or less meaningful? I don't know.
Wow.
It's this strange new world we're all navigating.
It really is, and I don't think there's an easy answer, you know? For some people, that shared online space might be exactly what they need that way to connect with others who get it.
Right.
But for others, it might feel completely overwhelming, even triggering. And I think it's about recognizing that both of those experiences are valid.
That's such an important point.
Yeah.
It's not one size fits all, right? Grief is so personal.
Right?
And I think what we're seeing here is how social media adds this whole other dimension to it, especially when it comes to public figures.
It's true. It's almost like we're all figuring it out as we go.
Yeah.
Like, what are the rules for grieving in this digital age?
Right.
I don't think there are any which can make it both freeing and really, really difficult.
Absolutely. So for anyone listening who might be going through something similar right now, whether it's grieving Liam, another artist you admired, or even a personal loss that's been, brought back up by all of this.
Yeah.
We see you. Your grief is valid no matter what form it takes.
Absolutely.
And if this conversation has resonated with you, if you want to share your own experiences with fandom, or even just your thoughts on this whole idea of grief in the digital age, we're here for it.
Yeah.
Hit us up on social media. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, for sure.
This has been a tough one. But, these are the conversations worth having, the ones that make us think a little deeper.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us as we unpack this. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's caught our attention. Until then, take care of yourselves.